All right, so welcome to another deep dive where we take a listener-submitted source and we kind of, go deep on it.
I like it. Sounds fun.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun. We're looking at today a YouTube video, and I think this one will be particularly interesting.
Huh.
It's from a channel called Tomcat's World,
Okay.
and the video is titled "Flush the Toilet." Now it's about preparedness and survival,
Hmm.
and kind of, I guess, having the right mindset and the right community.
Interesting. So, like practical skills and gear, or more about the mental and social aspects?
Well, he touches on both actually, but
Mm.
the way he frames it is really unique. Um, it starts with him walking his dog Oscar,
Mm-hmm.
so it's kind of a casual setting, but then he drops this flush the toilet metaphor, which is
Flush the toilet. Okay, that's a bit jarring. What's he flushing?
right. So basically, he's saying when it comes to prepping, you got to get rid of the dead weight, and he's not just talking about extra supplies or whatever. He means people.
Mhm.
People will drag you down in a crisis.
Wow, that's pretty radical.
Yeah, it is. And he even goes so far as to say, it is better to be a lone wolf
Mm.
than have somebody that's going to bring you down. Like he's really emphasizing self-reliance and choosing your community carefully, even if it means cutting ties with family or friends who aren't on board with prepping.
I see. So he's not advocating for complete isolation, but rather for a very selective approach to forming a community, right?
Exactly. It's not about being a lone wolf necessarily, but about assembling a pack of like-minded and capable people who can contribute and won't become a burden.
Okay, so it's about finding people who share your values and who are actively preparing for potential challenges. That makes sense.
Right.
It's a bit like choosing your teammates for a difficult mission, right? You want people who are skilled, reliable, and who'll have your back.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. And Tomcat's point is that it's not just about having a bunker full of supplies. It's about surrounding yourself with people who share that mindset of self-sufficiency and who won't fold under pressure.
So he's emphasizing the human element of preparedness, the importance of having a strong and resilient community to rely on when things get tough.
Exactly. He actually says everybody can do something. If they don't, that's a personal choice. So he's not saying everyone needs to be a survival expert,
Yeah.
but he values skills, a strong work ethic, even a positive attitude, anything that adds value to the group.
I like that. It's about recognizing that everyone has something to contribute and that diversity of skills and perspectives can be a real asset in a challenging situation.
Right. He's not looking for clones of himself. He wants people who bring different strengths to the table, but who are all united by this shared commitment to being prepared and self-reliant.
That makes sense. In a survival situation, you'd need people who can handle different tasks: medical care, shelter building, food production, security, and even maintaining morale.
Yeah, and Tomcat makes it clear that he has no patience for what he calls lazy losers, people who expect handouts and don't contribute.
Yeah.
He even quotes the Bible, if you don't work, you don't eat.
That's a pretty strong statement. I can see how that perspective might resonate with some people, especially those who have worked hard to become self sufficient. But it also raises some questions about social responsibility and how we approach those who might need help, especially in a crisis situation.
Yeah, that's something we can definitely delve into further. It's clear that Tomcat has some strong opinions on this, and I'm interested to hear your take on the balance between individual responsibility and communal support.
Yeah, that's a complex issue with a lot of nuances. I think it's important to explore those different perspectives and try to understand where Tomcat is coming from while also considering other viewpoints on how to approach community and resilience in challenging times.
Exactly. And we'll get into all of that as we continue our deep dive into Tomcat's flush the toilet philosophy.
So, Tomcat's perspective is certainly thought-provoking, but, is this every man for himself mentality really the best approach to, preparedness?
Right. Because when you think about those stories of like, communities coming together after a hurricane or a wildfire, it seems like there's a real power in working together.
Absolutely. There's actually a lot of research on community resilience, and it shows that the networks of relationships and trust that exist within a community, those can be really powerful, especially when it comes to like providing support and sharing resources and just that sense of we're all in this together.
So like it's not just about individuals being prepared. It's also about how those individuals connect to a larger community, right?
Exactly. It's finding that synergy between what you can do yourself and what you can achieve as a group.
I think Tomcat would agree with that to some extent. I mean, he does talk about the need for a community, but as long as everyone's pulling their weight. But I also think his language, calling people lazy losers and parasites it's pretty harsh.
Yeah, I hear you. And that's where, I think we need to be careful about labeling people. I mean, everyone has their own story, their own struggles. Someone who might appear to be lazy could be dealing with, mental health issues or facing some sort of, discrimination or just a lack of opportunities.
Yeah. We don't always know what other people are going through.
Exactly. And even if someone's struggles are due to their own choices, that doesn't mean they're beyond help,
Yeah.
right?
So it's about being compassionate, I guess, and recognizing that, everyone has the potential to change and grow.
Right. And instead of writing people off, maybe we should focus on creating a more inclusive and supportive environment where, everyone has a chance to contribute.
So it's not about refusing to help those in need. It's about setting healthy boundaries, right?
Yeah, exactly. Boundaries are important. It's about finding that balance between supporting others and making sure that, you're taking care of yourself as well.
And Tomcat does talk about, the emotional toll of feeling burdened by others, right? Like
Yeah.
having to constantly bail people out or feeling like
Hmm.
your efforts are being taken advantage of.
Right, and those are valid feelings.
Yeah.
But I think it comes back to communication, like being upfront about your needs and expectations and setting those boundaries in a clear and respectful way.
So it's about having those tough conversations, even with loved ones.
Exactly. And I think it's also about fostering that sense of shared responsibility within a community, like encouraging everyone to contribute in, whatever way they can.
Tomcat talks about how even those with limited means can find ways to prepare. Like he says, everybody's got a phone in their pocket, so they have access to, information, maybe ways to make extra money.
Yeah, there's definitely some truth to that. Technology has, created new opportunities for resourcefulness and, even generating income. But I also think it's important to acknowledge that, there are systemic barriers, right? Like access to education or healthcare or stable housing. Those things can make it a lot harder for some people to prepare, even if they're trying their best.
Right, so it's not always a level playing field.
Exactly. And, that's where community support becomes even more important. Like a strong community can help to, mitigate some of those disadvantages by providing resources and sharing skills and offering that, mutual aid.
So it's about recognizing that we all have different strengths and weaknesses,
Yeah.
and that by working together, we can create a more, resilient society where everyone has a chance to thrive.
Exactly. And it's about moving beyond that us versus them mentality and embracing a more, inclusive approach to preparedness that recognizes that we're all, interconnected in some way.
Comcat's video, it's definitely sparked some important conversations.
It has. And I think it's a conversation that's worth continuing.
So Tomcat's flush the toilet, pretty extreme, but it does make you think about, where do you draw the line, right? When it comes to like helping others, especially in a crisis.
Yeah, like is there a point where, self-reliance kind of tips over into, being too isolated? Could that actually make you less resilient in the long run?
Right, because like, if everyone's just hunkered down in their bunker, you know, not talking to their neighbors, not helping each other out, I mean, that doesn't seem very sustainable, does it?
No, not at all. I mean, history shows us that, cooperation is key, right? Like think about, communities coming together after a natural disaster. It's that spirit of helping each other out that really gets people through it.
Yeah. And it's not just about the practical stuff either. Like having people around, having that emotional support, that sense of belonging, I think that's really important too, especially when things are tough.
Absolutely. Loneliness and isolation, those can be, huge problems, especially in a crisis. Having those social connections, those strong relationships, that can make a big difference in how you cope with stress and trauma.
So it's like prepping for your mental and emotional well-being is just as important as having food and water and, all that other stuff.
Exactly. And that's where community really comes in, right? Because those connections, that support network, those are things that can really help you build resilience, not just as an individual, but as a group.
Going back to that flush the toilet metaphor, though,
Yeah.
maybe instead of, getting rid of people, maybe it's more about like helping them get to a place where they can contribute.
I like that. Shifting from, judgment to empowerment because everyone has
Yeah.
potential, right? Maybe someone just needs a little help, a little guidance to figure out what their strengths are and how they can use them to, benefit the community.
Yeah. It's about creating an environment where everyone feels valued, feels like they belong, feels like they have something to offer.
And when people feel that way, they're more likely to step up, to contribute, to be a part of something bigger than themselves.
So maybe the takeaway here isn't about, ditching everyone who doesn't fit into your perfect prepper mold. Maybe it's more about, recognizing the value of community, of supporting each other, of recognizing that we all have something to contribute.
Yeah, and recognizing that preparedness isn't just about, stockpiling stuff. It's about building relationships, building trust, building that sense of shared responsibility.
And maybe it's about, having some tough conversations along the way, about setting boundaries, being honest about your needs and expectations, and figuring out how to work together, even when things get tough.
And, always being open to learning and growing and adapting because preparedness is a journey, right? It's not a destination.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Well, I think we've, gone pretty deep on this one. Tomcat's flush the toilet philosophy definitely gave us a lot to think about.
It did. And hopefully it's given our listeners some food for thought as well.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.
These